Welcome, everyone, to the Midnight Charette podcast hosted by David Lee. That is myself and Marina Bourderonnet.
Are you sure it's yourself?
The French designer. What is it like to be a French designer? Je ne sais quoi. I do not know,
so
my friend, mon frère.
Mon frère. Oh, yeah. I'm your brother now.
Mon soeur. So we're doing this introduction before the recording just to keep it fluid. You know, it's like, what if we didn't fuck with time and we just let it go from now until the end of recording? That's what we're doing, right? But what's weird about it is that we have to do sponsors, so it kind of throw things in a loop. We have sponsors and supporters. There is Archicad by Graphisoft. They are a computer program company. Graphisoft is the company. Archicad is the program. It is a BIM program for architects. It is a rival to Revit. It is superior to Revit in many ways. And, in fact, we have a recording about softwares, computer softwares for architects and designers, but mostly architects, coming out, I believe, this Thursday, if I can get it prepared in time. Which doesn't sound very interesting, I know, but we do discuss specific things with programs. We also discuss specific programs, and we discuss more conceptual things, such as the design process, and more practical things for students. What do I learn? How do I learn? And for professionals who have their own offices, do I transition away from this program to that program? Because everyone says I should do it. Is it the right thing for me? We discuss all those things. But you should check out Archicad if you are interested in using a BIM program that is not Revit. And the advantages of Archicad are numerous. One of them is it's much faster, it's Mac friendly, and as we'll discuss on Thursday, it's an easier. It's comfortable. It's kind of like sitting in a chair that was meant for you, as opposed to sitting on a park bench. Revit is the park bench in this situation, right? So go to graphisoft.com and check out Archicad. They're great people and good software.
And when you add it, just keep punching NAD, NAAD.me. What did you just do? NAD is an online store created by an architect and her husband, and they sell a lot of home goods, fashion goods from North Africa and the Middle East, with mostly young designers producing those products. Very, very cool design, very affordable prices, extreme, really well done quality. And
it's a good save. Extremely David.
And if you use the code Midnight when you check out, you get 15% off. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, and there is something I want to say about both of those supporters. We have them because we have an agreement with them, but also we like them and we believe in what they're doing. With Archicad, we like their software, we've used their software, and with Nod, we know the people that founded it, but also we've purchased their stuff because it's cool. So you can trust it. You can trust this because...
Yeah, and actually if you have, yourself brands or product that you trust or you like what they're doing and you want to promote what they're doing, feel free to, share it with us. We see what we can do. So
we're going to talk about the Salesforce, what is it called? The Salesforce Transit Center in San Francisco, which was designed by Pelli Architects. And recently, Caesar Pelli passed away.
That eventually happens when you get old.
It does happen when you get old. Recently it happened like maybe in the last half a year or so. Pretty iconic architect. Maybe a lot of younger designers don't quite know him as well, but I think he was a phenomenal architect for sure. And their office, I've never worked there, but I've had some interaction with them, and their office seems to be, the one in New York, I've interacted with that one, seems to be just the nicest people and the most caring. Actually, to be honest, I interviewed at that office, and what happened was, so they have two locations. They have one in someplace that's not New York. I don't know where. Because when you live in New York, you don't give a shit about anything else except for New York. So just somewhere outside of New York, it was the main office. And the New York office started off, I think, as a satellite place. And then it grew up into a full one with like 40 people or whatever. But anyway, interviewed there, went very well.
Isn't it Boston?
No, it's not. No, not Boston. I think it's in like Connecticut. I don't know, someplace.
Oh, I think so.
But anyway, the interview went well, and it seemed like it could have gone someplace, but they weren't quite ready to hire. I'm not saying they would have hired me. It seemed to be on good terms where we were going, but they weren't quite ready to hire, and I needed to get a job. So it didn't work out. But the Caesar Pelli's son, I think it's Raphael Pelli, I'm forgetting now, was so nice that when I called him to tell him, I need an answer kind of thing because I have another offer, and he was so nice. He's like, well, we could be hiring someone in the next week. It could be tomorrow. It could be also a few months from now because that's how projects go. He said, so what I think you should do is just take the other offer. And whereas I think more shrewd business employers would have said, hang on, we might have an opening coming out soon.
Maybe that was just the best way for
to say
him
no.
to tell you no without having to tell you no.
Yeah, it could be. It could be. But I'm just saying that everyone I came across there were super nice, and he was so thoughtful as to, think about what was best for me as a potential employee rather than what he might have wanted himself.
Maybe he would have tortured you, and he figured I kind of feel bad torturing that guy. Seems like a nice guy.
That's also more likely than what I'm saying, but they seem to be like good people. But so anyway, so they designed the Salesforce Transit Center and of course the Salesforce Tower, which is I think now the largest or the tallest, or if not close to it, tower in San Francisco, right?
It seems like it's sticking out quite a bit compared to the others.
Yeah, it's quite phallic-like.
Like any towers
but
that a man would
most towers
design?
are phallic-like. Yeah, what a woman's going to design a vagina tower?
Hey, why not?
The Grand Arch.
Ladies, they just designed the Great Arch.
That wasn't designed by a woman.
No, I mean it's not in a vagina shape anyway. It's not a woman because it's not designed as a vagina.
A very orthogonal vagina. Okay, so it was designed by them. So we're going to talk about those two things, or the transit center mostly. But before that, what happened was the last 2 days before visiting the transit center, we went to a mall in downtown San Francisco 2 days in a row. Because we were looking for some specific 3 days in a row. Yeah, 3 days in a row. Because we felt like spending a lot of money. No, we were there for specific reasons, but we were looking for stuff. And I have to say that prior to that experience, anytime I saw a housewife or any other person, but typically it's a housewife, and their small chihuahua walking around with bags, complaining that it was exhausting going to the mall, I thought, you're stupid and pathetic. Don't complain about that at all. But I will say, after walking around the mall for 3 days, it's fucking exhausting.
What if you spend 7 hours at the mall for 3 days in a row? Yeah, it is exhausting.
It probably one of the most difficult things I've had to do in my life was to be at the mall for that long. Not because of the physical stress, but because it's like there's so many things to see and so many crappy products. And also when you go to the mall in the middle of the day, everyone at the big, what do they call them? Retail stores? Like Nordstrom's, Bloomingdale's, Saks, or whatever, those places, they work in commission. So you walk like 20 feet and you get approached by 6 different people of all different ethnicities asking if you want help or if you want to buy this or that product.
It's like you're an antelope, running in the desert surrounded by lions. You kind of have to make your way out without being caught.
And I don't know what it is about people who work in retail at upper end stores. Is it mandatory for them to have an attitude as if they're better than everyone else in the world? Is that part of their hiring process?
It's probably their surviving shell that they have to put on.
Right.
I mean, it's really not a very exciting job.
Right.
And you probably deal with a lot of people who make a lot more money than you do, and you have to deal with their bitchy attitude about products and things and how things are never good enough or whatever. So it probably stains on you after a while, I would feel like,
But wouldn't you then become accustomed to behaving in a more amicable and servant manner, to help to serve? That's what you used to do.
Actually, during those 3 days we went on the mall, there was kind of 2 attitude, right? There is the bitchy, I'm rolling my eyes, you're not gonna buy this jacket, get out of here, kind of snobbing customers. And then there is the other end, which is oh, let me help you, sir, oh, let me do this, oh, let me do that. And it's kind of I'm a nobody, so chill, man. Yeah, fine, thank you for putting stuff in the hanger, but I'm not, the princess of France. I'm just a random person looking for pants. You know what I mean?
Does France have a princess?
I don't know. I left France a long time ago. Maybe they're back. I don't know.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I almost feel bad. I'm like, you don't have to put yourself down to that level because I'm probably at the same level as you are. So it's totally fine.
But I don't like it also because it makes me feel obligated to buy something, and a lot of the times I'm not really there to buy something. I'm just kind of looking, and I really don't understand how people can go to the mall, try something on in a dressing room, and then if it's an expensive item, spend $400 on that item and be confident in their purchase. Like, how does that work? How do you know this even makes sense with the rest of your clothing? You know what I mean? It's like trying out a design option in the abstract. Or looking at a door for your building and then not looking at it in the context of the fucking building.
Well, you have to have your wardrobe in your mind when you buy something.
I don't.
Projection, David.
Yeah.
No. What bugs me is that when you are about to buy a $400 piece, right, and the room you're trying it on is shit. Like shit lighting, shit chair, shit wall covering, nothing vacuumed that place for the past month. There is fingerprints all over and who knows what else. It's, it's a little like, where am I? Am I in down an alley in Lower East Side trying those expensive pants? Is it part of the experience I'm supposed to get? It's a little weird. I was actually shocked, and I almost felt like I saw the backside of the mall by going 3 days in a row because we saw so much of it, and you kind of start paying attention to all the things that look wrong, and I'm like, again, you're selling all of Bloomingdale's, Nordstrom, all of those expensive items. It's not like JCPenney clothing, right? And still your display fixtures are shit, your fitting rooms are outdated, your lighting sucks.
And then you go across the street to Barney's, and they have a lot of the same items, and some different ones, but a lot of the same items. And it's like everything's immaculate and very expensive, and you don't feel as welcomed, right? And the amount of space allocated, the amount of space per article of clothing increases tenfold at a place like Barney's or Fred's or whatever the other store that we went to. It's like one t-shirt, we need 10 square feet of, we need 100 square feet of space just for one t-shirt, right? The same fucking t-shirt exists across the street at Bloomingdale's, right? In a rack sandwiched between 100 others. You know what I mean? And so it's like this illusion of something costing more, but it doesn't really matter.
I remember the first time I went to one of those department stores was in New York, and that was Macy's. By 34. That was, I think, my first experience.
What do you mean your first experience?
In an overwhelming department store.
Oh, okay.
I think I went to Nordstrom in California before, but this particular one, and I felt, dizzy the whole time. I had a terrible headache. I felt like I was either going to faint, throw up, or die. And I was like, I don't even know how to approach this. I don't even know where to start. I don't even know if there is any sense to what's there. I don't even know if there is one thing that looks good, And it kind of felt like a giant buffet, at a restaurant where you kind of want to try it all, but at the same time, it's probably not good for you. And at the end of the day, you don't even know if you're going to come out satisfied.
Yeah. Well, that's why it's easier just to go to a specific retailer that has their own shop, because everything's the same. If you just limit your scope, right, and you go to a place that you trust, then your chances of finding something that is going to be at least, a certain level of quality and aesthetic quality as well, you can buy into. But at an apartment store, it's like
or couch potato iPad shopping.
That's the best.
I think it's the best.
Yeah. The other thing that happens when you go to a mall 3 days in a row is you start to become aware of the kind of interactions between the people that work in the mall and the people who are return shoppers or visitors, because there's a lot of homeless in San Francisco, so you get homeless kind of hanging out in the food court and these nuances, and you kind of forget, because a mall is a weird place, because it's it's kind of like a transient environment, not quite to the degree of an airport, obviously, or to the degree of like any other transit hub, but still the bulk of it, right, the circulation, is just temporary, in part because I think a lot of people don't go to the mall 3 days in a row or once a week unless they're teenagers and have nowhere else to go in America. So you get a lot of people who are just there like once every couple months or something, and there's a weird kind of almost like air quality that happens in a space that's like that. It's almost hospital feeling, and even in nicer
germy.
That's it. Maybe it's germs. Maybe that's what I'm tasting. It's just germs. But even in nicer places like South Coast Plaza in Southern California, a much nicer mall, and they have like the most expensive brands. They have a lot of greenery in certain areas that like water features, and they try to make it not like that. But even then, you get like a taste of it, in the back of your throat every now and then. It's a very weird thing.
Also, signage. Like,
signage.
Why is it so hard to know what floor you're on, where you are, and where you have to go where you want to be? It's signage. People, again, not difficult.
The signage was there. It just was above you, so you didn't see it. Like the few times that you were looking where the floor was, there's a giant letter 3.
Well, don't make it gold. Make it bright pink, so it stands out.
I suppose that's true.
And like you have a map, at least put the star. You are here, so the map is helpful to someone.
Yeah. The other thing too is
we're architects, so we can get around. But if you're not, like, how the fuck do you know where you are?
I'm lost most of the time in my life, even though I'm an architect. The other thing I noticed is these kiosks they have in the mall, and also like in cities now, or in like transit hubs, these digital kiosk screen things.
So stupid.
Now, let's see, in a public space, like a subway station, or on the street, or in a mall, at the front, right before an escalator, there's a digital screen. What do you expect to see on that screen? A fucking map. That's probably the only thing we care about in the mall is a map and maybe the hours. Half the time, there's no fucking map. It's it's an advertisement for like Hollister or Windows, Surface, which is the worst advertisement ever. If you've seen it, it is the worst. So this advertisement.
So if you see two people
aggressively wrong.
If you see two people in a mall keep punching on a screen that has an advertisement, it's probably us. We were in New York. You're used to just touch it, and then you can get all kinds of information.
But there's the screen, and then there's the frame around the screen, and there's a sticker on the frame that's clearly a sticker because it's peeling off, and you push the sticker, and I was like, no, you can tell there's no button. It's a sticker.
Just give me that map, man. Where is the map?
Ridiculous. And actually, these it's not a kiosk. These displays, they don't even have maps. They're just advertisements, which I guess you need to create ad space for income. But could you make it look not like an information thing? It's just I don't know what that's about.
This mall was interesting, and it actually reminded me a little bit of the mall that's at 59th Street by Columbus Circle. I actually don't know the name of that mall.
59th on the east? 59th in Columbus Circle? Oh, west.
I can't remember the name. Anyway.
I think it was done by KPF. Or SOM.
No, I can't remember.
The one with the 2 towers. The twin towers that were done by the SOM.
The one with the big atrium in the entry.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Were they a big nude guy and a little tiny penis? There's a giant Marshmallow Man sculpture.
There is a woman and a man.
Why am I only drawn to the penis? There's a big
because it's pretty much inexistent.
Marshmallow Man bronze brass thing, right? Dark because it's metal, kind of age over time. The only part of the statue that's bright yellow from all the touching is the tip of the penis.
Yeah, but it's like the bowl that's downtown. The balls of the balls are bright shiny because people keep rubbing it. It's only shiny luck. Because people keep rubbing it.
It's good luck.
That's it. But anyway, both of these malls have tenants within it that are not stores, like co-working space, headquarter offices of companies and things. And I found it very disturbing to me.
In both malls?
Yeah.
I don't remember saying that.
Yeah. Yeah, like by the elevators, there are signs like, this office this way, this office this way. Or you have like storefront that are, like smoked glass with people working in offices behind, but you're like in a galleria walking around to shop, and it's interesting. It's disturbing. At the same time, I kind of like it if there was more mixity, like if there were a little more everywhere, you know.
Yeah.
So you could see, it's almost like, so it's more of an interior street, right? You see people working, people shopping, people eating. But it almost looks like, the store never worked out here, so we just put an office.
Yeah, I still think it'd be a lot of fun to design a mall. The food court is interesting in this one because it's in the very basement.
It's depressing.
And it's almost like the mall was ashamed to have a food court and they shoved it down underground. And again,
it's like the guts and belly of the...
Yeah, and again, there's a lot of homeless in San Francisco. So you have homeless people hanging out and causing problems or not causing problems. And it's like a very... It's weird to go from like some designer store and all of a sudden now you're next to Panda Express. You know what I mean?
Or you go in like, Nordstrom's restroom, woman's lounge, and there is a woman doing her pedicure on a stool, and you're like, what are you doing?
The restrooms in the mall were really strange. I don't know if it's like a progressive San Francisco,
open one,
gender, non-gender, whatever situation, but it was a men's and a women's, but one bathroom. But the bathroom didn't have a door, so it wasn't like, when you do a bathroom, you typically go through like a vestibule and you do like a little like U-turn.
Yeah. So these were like kind of at the end of a hallway, in the corner of a hallway, right? And like one side was the man, the other side was the woman, and what was unifying both was this common wash basin to wash your hands.
Yeah.
Right, with that mirror or anything. So I'm washing my hands in front of a random dude.
Yeah.
On the other side.
But even worse than that, so you have the sinks which divide the spaces. That's the only thing that divides the space. Behind the men's sink are the stalls, and then the urinals kind of like around the corner, and then across from the sinks for the women's are the stalls. So it's basically one bathroom without even a because there's no door. It's just like a corner that's missing of like a 12-foot wide entry. And as you're walking down the hallway, it's not like your vision is even blocked from the sinks or the stalls. You're looking at the feet of people taking shit as you're walking down the hallway.
And, like a lot of bathroom in the US, there is a huge gap between the door and what holds the door. And I'm like,
what?
Okay. There is always like those gaps where the hinges are, when the lock is on the door in the bathrooms.
Oh, yeah. That's so you can get a little peek of what's going on.
Whatever, what the heck? I don't want anyone to peek.
Okay.
And also now we're sharing bathrooms, so I don't want like a creep to peek at me peeing.
It's a little aggressive. I don't know why they did that, because I've been to the mall before, and that's a pretty memorable thing, and it wasn't like that before. I don't know if they changed it because of the gender kind of issues.
Well, they still have the sign men and women, so if you're really making it non-gender specific, don't even put the signs.
It's just awkward is what it is. I don't really like the idea of everyone know that I'm taking a shit, and I don't like it when it's like women knowing that I'm taking a shit. It's even more awkward. Not that I did that. Because I don't do that. Right. I don't know.
The other thing that, talking back about the salespeople in the department stores, okay, like you said, they're very aggressive. Like I was walking down one aisle and I hear behind me, I'm available. And I'm like, okay, somebody's talking with someone else. And I hear like, footsteps are kind of like rushing. And I hear, excuse me, I'm available. So I turn around, like somebody talking to me. And there is this saleswoman who's basically chasing me down the aisle. And I'm like, okay, well, good for you if you're available. I didn't fucking ask for anything. Just let me shop around. I looked at her with my big eyes like, okay, thank you. Like, leave me alone.
It's because
it's very stressful. It just makes me
it's in the middle of the
stressed.
day and they have nothing else to do. And,
okay,
and
look, I get that you're desperate, that there is no fucking body right now shopping and your commission isn't going anywhere, but maybe at least pretend a little better. Or like we went to another store. I think it was the Saks. Not that we, not that we ever do that, like even go to these stores, but we went to Saks a few blocks away.
We don't mix with these people at Saks. We only go to places like Louis Vuitton.
Right. And we go to the last floor or something. And there was just two super hip guys that look like models walking around. And I'm like, why are you even working here? Like, if you look that good, you can probably get a better job than selling clothes. But maybe that's a great job. I don't know. And so they're like chit-chatting about girls, like this girl that he wants to date, maybe you should hire her, blah, blah, blah. I always find it weird when like guys who work in a store talk about dating girls, especially when there is women shopping around them, women of their age, because it's like, what are they going to say about me once I leave that floor? You know, it's a little weird. And also, I don't care about your personal conversation. And so it was interesting because their strategy, instead of harassing us, like, you need help, you want me, I'm available, they would just keep having the conversation, but very discreetly and slowly following where we were going. And at first it was like, do I look like a criminal? Do I look like I'm going to steal a shirt? Like, why are they spying on me? Are they following me to make sure? Are they security? Are they salespeople? You know, it was very confusing.
There's something very museum-like.
It's like we were dancing. We were all choreographically.
You know the people at the museum that like look out to see if you're touching paintings and stuff. What are they called? I don't know. Fucking know. You know the people in the blazers.
Know how they're called.
It's very much like that.
Museum people.
You don't know if like. You don't know, if you're on their bad side or their good side. If they don't trust you.
They make you
like
feel guilty even if you have nothing to be guilty for.
The other thing too is when they serve you, there's like all this procession and stuff you have to do to try on something and purchase the item, right? It's like, let me help you. I may introduce myself. I give you my name. You give me your name. We shake hands. You give me the item. I talk about the item. I put it in the dressing room for you. I unlock the dressing room. I stalk you and walk around. I suggest other things. I take that stuff, put that in the dressing room, keep walking with you, walk with you to the dressing room. I'll unlock it again for you. You go inside. I check up on you when you're in the dressing room.
And someone came up with that procedure.
But part of me is like, do you realize your job is completely obsolete? And unless I was blind, I don't really need your opinion. And why the fuck would I trust your opinion? You know, maybe you're a fashion student or you graduated from fashion school, so maybe you have some knowledge about that. But let's be honest, I'm not going to trust that either. You're not necessary. I don't need. It is the only thing that's necessary if there's someone to grab the clothes from you, so you don't have to carry them around as you're looking at other stuff. Beyond that, just leave the fucking the dressing rooms unlocked.
And then you grab one thing, and as soon as you have it in your hand, they rush and they even like pull it out of your hands to put it in the dressing room. And I'm I don't know yet if I want to try it. Can I have a minute?
Yeah.
It's like, God.
But see, none of it is necessary, right? None of it's necessary because I think there's like their job exists. I don't know what they exist for. To unlock the room could be unlocked, really, unless they're really that concerned about people doing weird things in the room. But aside from that, we don't need a human being to unlock the room for someone else. Let's see. We do need someone to maybe take the articles of clothing to set them aside because they're heavy. Okay, that's a pretty... I mean, that's like a wheel... Basically, you're like a wheelbarrow is what that is, okay? And let's see. Do we need someone to help a person decide for what style of clothing? Probably not, again, unless they're blind. So I really don't know what your job is to exist. Do we need you for checkout? Not anymore. Not anymore. Fucking pay with my phone. You know what I mean? And the thing is, they act as if their job is so important. And every single one of those steps I mentioned, we're going to go through those steps together, you know? And anytime you meet someone in retail, you know that that's the thing that's going to happen.
Well, I think
it's
they have a very
casual...
specific, they have a very specific orchestrated process that they have to go through.
It's a sales
and
pitch.
I'm sure, their boss is watching that they're doing it the right way. And I'm appreciative that they're trying to do what they are supposed to do, even if it's completely unnecessary. So that's
the other day, I decided to buy this shirt, and then this older Asian woman, so loud. I mean, you could hear her voice echoing off the tile in the store. I know, I was looking for you, and I was like, where is David? And then I'm like... And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to get this shirt. She takes the shirt from me, like you described. Then she runs away. Like, where did you go? I see short. I can't find her. I hear... I go over and she's going on and on and on about how this company also designs this shirt. This shirt is good and it's this material, but she spoke so fast with a really heavy accent, I didn't understand anything she was saying.
I understood most of it and I was like, oh, that was that word. Oh, okay, wow. I was impressed with myself. Wow.
It was so confusing.
But she was quite a highlight out of all of the people working there. She was quite of a highlight. Like, you showed her shit that you were looking for on your phone, and she's like, "Oh yeah.
Easy.
No, we don't have it anymore." She's like super excited, and then like she dropped the ball.
Yeah. I get plenty of that already. And usually when I hear all that stuff, I'm consuming delicious Chinese food around a giant lazy Susan, so I don't really need that.
No, but that was a very interesting move from the company who was selling those clothes, because they deliberately hired
her,
a very extravagant, outspoken, dynamic, loud Asian woman, probably Chinese, right? Thinking, that's my thinking, right? That because this mall is downtown San Francisco, it's the Westfield Mall in San Francisco.
Yeah,
they have a lot of luxury things at Bloomingdale's, right? That they would put that specific woman selling this specific brand, thinking that a lot of Chinese tourists would come to buy that there.
Chinese are tourists, are people living in San Francisco. You know what I mean? They probably did
or even Asian, but Asian people, like that's their target clientele by having her there. And it was interesting. It was kind of weird.
It was weird.
It was at first unexpected. Because the brand she was representing...
Yeah, well, she was representing the Couples, which was a French brand from Paris. So, like, why is she representing...
She had a fanny pack and, like, some crazy, funky pattern, and I don't know, she was like, really out there.
If you had to describe a person that would be a sales rep for the Couples, it would not be her. I wonder if they, like, if the brand, like, did a survey and, was like, okay, clearly a lot of Chinese restaurants in this region of the world. Let's see what those restaurants are like. Okay, right. Let's just poach one of those people.
But that's interesting, like, do they have stats of, like, the names of the customers that go there, and they saw that there was a bunch of Asian, so they figured, let's put an Asian person, I
don't know. I'm sure there's some kind of polling going on. It
was quite something.
But yes, walking around for that long, man, kind of exhausting. And I have this knee pain. I don't know what's going on with that.
It's the muscles growing.
The muscles in my knee? You
have a third knee growing.
Yeah. I'm not sure what that's about.
So after this so much fun at the mall, we decided to go check out Highline 2.0 in San Francisco. So what did you think?
So as I told you earlier today, we had planned to go to the park to talk about it on the podcast, and I totally forgot that was the plan. And if I had remembered that we were going to talk about it, I would have paid more attention, but I did not remember, and my feet were hurting, so I really don't remember what happened at all, other than a lot of pain. So maybe you can lead this one?
Well, if you want to talk about the design things that were there, I can. Yeah, I took a little bit of observation here and there.
So, Peli Peli were the architects of the tower and then this terminal, and
they did the terminal too.
Yeah. The architects of the terminal, but they were the architects, and they had a landscape architect.
Of course.
PWP Landscape Architecture. Horrible name, but I guess whatever. They did the park on top of the transit center. So the transit center is interesting, and we'll have to post like a Google image of it because it sits in downtown San Francisco. It's not along the edge of a city and doesn't reinforce the edge of a city like in New York and the High Line. It's central, and it exists spanning across, I think, like maybe 4 blocks. I don't know, something like that.
It's pretty long, yeah.
Where buildings would typically be. Instead, now you have this...
It's not underground. It's not a rooftop.
Yeah, this continuous thing. And the ground level is basically, from what I remember, just used to park your bike and then to access the upper levels or the lower levels for different forms of transit. Because eventually it's going to feed into high-speed rail, actually.
But they also have some retail the tenants that are to come.
Yeah.
On the ground floor.
And then on top of this whole beast of a building, which costs $2.2 billion.
Well, there's 3 layers, 3 or 4 layers.
3 or 4 layers, right. On top of it all is a park, an elevated park, which is why it's, it has some kind of similarity to the High Line. Cost $2.2 billion. And the big fiasco with this is that it opened last August, so a year ago. And then the next month in September, it had to shut down because two guys who were working on the building to, I think, install or repair some like ceiling tiles or something really basic, came across a crack in one of the main structural beams, a girder. And so they immediately shut it all down, right? And did more inspection, found another crack in a separate beam.
And that's to say, too, that there is a very well-known tower in San Francisco, not far from that park, that is sinking.
The Millennium Tower, is that it? Millennium Falcon? Solar Tower? I don't know. What is it?
I don't know the name, but it's the one that's sinking by a few feet that, you know, people are concerned about. It's condos, luxury condos or something. So, you know, there is a lot of attention within that specific area. So
they had to shut down. And obviously when you discover two, I guess they're large enough to cause problem cracks. I mean, there shouldn't be any cracks, but large cracks in two significant steel beams, girders that were spanning one of the streets. You have to obviously close the whole thing down and then inspect everything to make sure there's nothing else going on. And so from what I understand, what happened was that during the construction, well, first of all, this should never happen because with a giant public project like this, there are many different teams of people and layers of checking to make sure stuff like this does not happen. So it's kind of extraordinary that an error like this would take place because it means that there is kind of misoversight happening across different people. Well, it depends. Was the crack happening due to construction or like post-construction sediment? You know? No. So what happened is that the beams were assembled on site because they're massive. And to weld the beams, you have to drill holes in the beam to get access to the weld, right? That's pretty common. But actually, the articles were a little confused. I'm getting mixed up now. But for certain beams done over a different street in a different part of the terminal, they didn't drill beforehand as they were supposed to or something like that, right? But they ended up rectifying it. The beams that ended up cracking, what happened was the guys working drilled the holes and they drilled them and they drilled it as a square cutout. And I guess it's better practice to make it round because you want to avoid... The forces travel better. You don't want anything square, angular at all. And additionally, you're supposed to grind down the hole afterwards because when you use a torch to cut a hole, it creates a bunch of minor stress fractures right around that area. So you're supposed to grind it down so you just grind away the cracks because if you have a small crack, it's going to eventually get bigger. They didn't do that. And apparently that practice that I just described, that technique, is mandatory according to the building code. And whoever approved it just, had it approved. And for whatever reason, in the design of the structure, the drawings for those beams, that wasn't included to say you should, cut out holes and whatever else. So they did it without they did it after shop drawings. There weren't drawings for it, or they included in shop, but it wasn't done kind of in the order it's supposed to be done. So is it the contractor's fault or the structural engineer's fault? So I don't know exactly. I mean, I did light research you can probably find online, people listening. But so anyway, so that's what happened. And so that shut down the building for a long time. For a long time. So when it opened, nothing collapsed, but obviously you got buses and people are pretty minor, but buses going over the thing, and it causes more stress to where it's visible enough for two dudes installing panels to be like, hey, there's a crack in this giant ass beam. There's a problem. So those are the only two cracks they found through the entire structure, and they just reopened. So they fixed them? They fixed them, and they basically just bolted on plates, and sandwiched the web or the part of the beam that was cracked, and that's, I guess, solved the problem. But they're lucky that it was accessible. But that took over a year, right? Because it opened in August and then closed after, shut down, and it reopened, I think, a month ago or something like that. So it took them a while to, I guess, figure out what happened, who was responsible, how to fix it. But yeah, they're lucky that those beams were accessible, because if they were like, they're lucky that they were visible. Imagine the cracks was hidden behind some drop ceiling or something, and the building collapsed. We lose a few hipsters, whatever. So that's the whole story behind it. It just recently reopened, it's not fully open yet. There's some like kind of transit stuff that's planned for the future still, but the park on top is open, which is where it went. So it's a pretty complex building in a way, because we
actually didn't really see that. So the ground floor, like you said, is kind of pedestrian. There is like some shops and retails that are going to open, and then you take escalators up to the bus terminal level, which I think there might be a couple of bus terminal level.
Yeah.
Well, the buses come, and they actually come from, I think, an overpass that comes in the city in that area.
Yeah.
That you can see from the ground floor if you arrive from the southern side. You don't really see it when you're on the bridge after in the park afterward. But so buses come in and out, and then the last floor is the park. And the park is interesting because, well, first it's boring because it's a big loop. It's basically just a loopy path around the edges of the park.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's one circle.
Yeah.
Like the High Line is interesting because you have a start, a destination. You have a start, you have an end, you have things happening in between. The scenery changes. Like there is a progression, right? That park, there is not really any progression because you're going in circle.
Yeah.
Like you can't really start anywhere and end anywhere. It's very short. Two, it's not very long, so you can easily do it. The only scenery that changes is, yes, the buildings that are around are slightly different, but still very downtown-y, like nothing really spicy there. It's really the vegetation that changes. And from the signage that I've seen without looking really into it, is that they try to plant species of plants that were from, I guess, different era or different areas, geographical area. So they had a prehistorical garden with like species that I've personally never seen. So that part was kind of cool because it felt like I was almost going into a botanical garden, like learning about plants that I've never seen before. And the colors, the palettes were really well done. Like the planting was actually very, very nice. The more built part of it was, to me, a little so-so. You know, the paving wasn't particularly exciting. They tried to do some kind of water feature on one side of the park, and they had those big guardrail, like frosted glass guardrail along where the water is. And every time apparently there is a bus that comes underneath in the level, there is like little streams, jets of water that shoots up and kind of moves along the promenade.
Yeah.
That I thought that was cute, but I didn't really understand what was the point of that. The benches that were there, well, again, if you're accustomed to the High Line, it was a little shy. It was a little shy.
It's I mean, I think in some ways it's people could say it's unfair to compare.
It is unfair,
the two, because they both are, the design of both of them is obviously very much dictated by their difference in location, climate, I suppose, but difference in city location, the width, the size, the length, and also their history, and therefore their kind of their spirit, we could say. I think this was kind of created from ground up, whereas I could be wrong on that, but I think it is. Whereas the High Line was an existing infrastructure.
Reuse,
But I think it is true that the High Line is what makes it good is that it fuses together the history, the architecture, and then the landscape, the greenery. Right. And they all get fused together into what the High Line is. So the benches are really nicely designed because they're designed by one of the best firms, DSR. And they kind of quote and work with the history of the High Line being a rail, and then the planting weaves in with it. So there's much more integration. Here, it was really just, the top felt like just a park done by a landscape architecture office, instead of it being a collaboration between architecture and nature.
What's interesting about the High Line is that, besides the location, the fact that it's reusing things, and it goes through buildings, and it's way more dynamic in a way, is that the High Line is one path, but like one straight line, right? But that line is your pathway, it's your landscape, it's everything. Like all the layers are blurring into each other, right? This park to me felt more like a conventional park, public park, where I'm meant to just walk on the pavement and that's it. And the nicest part of a park is what's actually the park, and it felt to me that it was not accessible. So the center was this big planted grass and like big trees, And I felt like, there was a little sign saying like fragile, they're growing it, like you have to be careful, don't go and lay down or step on it. But again, like I don't want to go.
Is it going to be open to the public eventually? I thought the sign said don't go, period. Or did it say don't go because the grass is still growing?
There were like very discreet signs, and I think it said, this is fragile, so be mindful. So
I thought I saw something, don't walk on this.
Oh, I don't know.
But the real question is the don't walk on the grass policy permanent, or is it just because, it's keep passing your water, I'm super thirsty. Thanks. Too much weed, you know what I'm saying?
Or even just the very pretty vegetation that was on the side. There was like this fat, thick railing, know, and I'm like, I mean, it's cacti. I'm not going to go walk in it,
So I think architecturally from the outside, I'm not a huge fan of it. I'm a fan of Pele and Pele typically, but this time not so much. They have this kind of angular bubble screen element that encloses the entire thing. So the building feels like a kind of floating amoeba, elongated amoeba thing with a screen. And in renderings, it looks cool, right? Because at night you have light coming through it or whatever. But in the daytime and even at night, I would imagine here, it just looks awkward. So I think the idea was right, but I think this doesn't quite. And it's also difficult because it's sandwiched between other buildings. So, I mean, it's a really interesting project, and actually it would be something fun to design. So that's that. But the park itself, I have to agree with most of what you said. The first thing I don't care for is that to get to the park, it's difficult. And maybe, again, that's just the nature.
I kind of like that. I kind of like that it's kind of hidden.
Well, so there's two ways to go about it. And again, we don't know how much of this was determined because of the sighting and all this other stuff. But one way to go is to say you want people to easily access the park. And if that's the way that the thing you're trying to do, then it didn't work. Because to get to the park, you have to cross the street and go through a transportation terminal, and it feels like, like I was saying, a very transient place, and not nice. It looks, there's public bathrooms, but it's going to be used by the homeless people. There's corners where there's going to be covered in dirt very soon. It's not, it feels like that, right? You have to go through multiple layers of that, stairs and escalators to then get to the park. That is not a nice procession to get to the park, right? It really feels like a terminal, park slammed on top. But what is the conversation between the park on top and the rest of the terminal? None, really. So if you think if what you're trying to do is create more of a seamless way to get in, to invite more people in from the ground level, failure. But maybe that's not the case. Maybe,
I don't think that was the case, because the park is connected to actually a couple buildings directly from the upper level. But
so maybe the other way of viewing it is that in terms of its relationship to the ground, it exists more as a floating and separate mass.
I think it was meant to be, it's meant to be the park for Salesforce, which Tower happens to communicate directly with it. And if you happen to be around and you want to go up there, you're welcome, but it's not meant for you.
Okay, so then there's a couple of things with that. First of all, actually, I found out that Salesforce bought the naming rights of the park for the next 25 years, but they're not the ones who funded the whole project.
Yeah, but their Tower communicates.
The Tower communicates, but if the park was conceived primarily as an amenity for the tower, and it only connects, there's only 2 points it connects to, aside from for the buses. There are only 2 pedestrian points it connects to at the park level. One is to the Salesforce Tower, another is to another office building, which is occupied by a tech company, I think. So if we're saying the park was conceived as an amenity basically for these office towers, then I think that's a total failure as a piece of public property and public space. That's disgusting. That is further privatization of public space, which we do not need in the United States. What we need is more fucking public space, and not more stuff that's amenities for, the young liberal hipster dude working at a tech offices and our tech company that has billions of dollars. We don't need more of that.
And it felt to me that was the case. We were walking around and I was like, this seems like a place where I would have like a business meeting, casual conversation. And as we were walking, a couple of people talking to each other were actually having a business conversation. Yeah. And I'm thinking, well, you know what? If that was my job, that's actually very appropriate, because we don't have to sit at somebody's desk or go to a formal meeting. It's nice to walk outside in the green and talk business. But And same time, I'm like, well, do you need a park? I mean, you can't just do business like other people used to do business before. And then they have this giant plaza in the middle of the park where I think the Salesforce Tower communicates, where they had a DJ.
Yeah.
Which I thought at first, I was like, oh, that's cool. There is some like nice plants. There's some nice plants. There's some tables, people sipping. It's sunset. There is a DJ. It's Friday night. Like, why not? And then I'm thinking and looking around, and I'm like, wait a minute. It's a bunch of like the same crowd. They have this stupidly dressed up DJ wearing a black suit. Who's not even cool.
The most unenthusiastic DJ ever with a giant beer
then
belly.
I'm thinking they probably do that like every day or every Friday, right? And they had tables with games that you could borrow and like play games. And I'm like, this is kind of so stereotypical. Like, oh, we're a cool firm, we do business, we play games, we like listen to music. And then at the end of the park, there was this like free yoga class, which, by the way, if that was to happen in New York City, would have had like, I don't know, hundreds of people. There would be like mats on mats on mats. You wouldn't even see the grass.
Public yoga in New York City is so weird because it's like, yoga is this spiritual, almost very relaxing thing. Really... When you do public yoga at like Bryant Park in the middle of Manhattan, it's like you're looking at the ranks of some kind of army that then they're about to march
and they
somewhere.
were doing their downer dogs, so just see rows of buttholes next to each other, and it's like,
you don't see the buttholes.
Well, it's like butts. It's just butts, rows of butts.
Okay.
Anyway, that park had maybe like 25.
Do you ever feel like going by going boop, 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 boop?
I always want to do that when I go up the stairs in the subway. There's someone behind me, and I'm like, oh, what if I did? What if I did? And then I'm thinking, I probably shouldn't do that.
Well, they might turn around and say like, excuse me, or they might turn around and be like, all right. You know what I mean?
I would have to pick my target a little more closely, but yeah. So anyway, there was this, very privileged crowd of 25 women doing yoga, and the DJ. It was a little disgusting.
So I don't know how this is financed, and if you're interested in a more discussion about the privatization of public space and this balance between the private sector and the public sector and how they influence each other and stuff, you should first go back to episode whatever with Sharon Zukin, who we had on, and then you should read all of her stuff because this is her domain and she has really interesting things to say. But I agree. But they have a lot of free programs happening through the summer and fall and whatever that are for the public. Sure. And whether or not it's financed by the private or the public, that's a fantastic thing. And the park is uniquely positioned, you would think, to kind of bridge that gap. Because it is a huge disparage between the public and the private, especially in San Francisco. We go to the extreme end, you have the homeless. It doesn't get more public than the homeless. Then you have the private, the tech companies. And that's another thing about San Francisco that's really strange. You walk or drive down the street and you have closer encampments of homeless people who look like either they're about to die or they're about to kill someone, and walking right by them are like Google nerds, like having no problem that they're right next to each other. Really weird.
Who makes 6 figures a year, and you're like, how is the world even functioning?
So this park, you would think it'd be uniquely positioned to kind of bridge two worlds, right? And maybe it will, because it's still just open and it's still kind of getting its feet under itself.
Yeah, but how do you bridge two worlds like that?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't think that you can. I think it is an opportunity to do that, but I think it's tough to do that when you don't make accessing the park from ground level, from the public space to the park easier. Right?
But even then, it's not because you have two different types of people within the same space that anything actually happens between them.
It doesn't matter. For some reason, okay, different urbanists subscribe to different philosophies when it comes to this. Some people are all for trying to get people to coexist in the same space because something good comes from it. Other people strongly don't believe in that. They disagree. They think it's dumb. You can't have a homeless guy and tech guy next to each other. Like, what good is that? It's not like they're going to sit down and start conversing with each other and that they're going to learn about each other's worlds. And I get that, and that's probably true, but that doesn't mean it's not worth something. I think there's a lot of value in simply people watching and seeing. So I don't believe in the whole argument that this meeting of different people doesn't have enough value to exist if it doesn't mean, aggressive, like actual sitting next to each other and conversing. I think it's enough for them to be in the same space and to witness each other.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. I'm just thinking that you cannot just design a space, put people in it, and hope that something would happen.
Yeah.
You have within your design have to push things to happen, or encourage or facilitate things to happen.
Yeah. And that's another really good point. Tip generally for anyone interested in urban design is that sometimes I think designers create these spaces. Architects do this. They create spaces and they just assume people will show up. No, they aren't. They're not going to show up for no reason. There's got to be something there. Program helps with that for sure. But if you're trying to be inclusive, you got to be careful what kind of program. You throw in a Starbucks, okay, Starbucks, they have open doors to toilets, so maybe you can see that as a kind of a olive branch, or as a way to also engage the people who can't afford to, buy a $5 drink but just need to use the restroom, homeless or anywhere slightly above there. But you throw in private amenities like that, it shifts the conversation. And I think we seem to be really willing to include private amenities and name brands into the mix because it's a way to fund things, and that it's going to be desirable from a user base, a consumer base, a consumer base. But, you are really discreetly giving these companies a shit ton of power to dictate the security of the space, who can go there, who feels welcome, and the image and identity of the neighborhood and the city. And I think it's super dangerous. Even if those companies have good intentions, if you have good intentions, fucking pay for it, but then don't put your name brand shop there or put your name everywhere. What about that?
And responding to that, I feel like naming it the Salesforce Park, to me, it's like, okay, well, I guess that's their park. It's not a public park. It's not a park for everybody. It's the Salesforce Park.
Yeah.
It's another way to spread my power on everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can certainly understand why they want to name it that way. Bobby Axelrod paid a lot of money to have his name on the museum. But I don't know. I think the other thing that struck me with the park is, there's a list of rules, things you can and cannot do. And this probably exists for most public spaces in the United States. Just maybe we're not as aware of them all the time, so it doesn't come to the forefront. But in this case, I happen to know them. And, the park opens and closes at certain times. You can't go on the grass. You can't bike. There's no wheeled devices other than like wheelchairs, things like this. And I think no pets. And there's a whole list of things you can't do. And some of them I appreciate, specifically because I have allergies and I don't like pets, so no pets is fine with me. But
it's nice to sit in the grass if there is no poop around.
Yeah, sure.
But if you can sit in the grass, does that even matter?
But I think here we over specify behavior in the public parks that we have, and it's not necessary. Even like not being able to drink in public, I think is stupid.
Don't smile in the public park. Don't breathe. Don't sneeze.
Like the space along the Seine, right? That doesn't close.
Well, it's a street.
It's fucking just there. The street. You can drink and hang out.
Well, that's friends.
And I don't know why, but I think we should employ more of that thinking here. I think it'd be better, it'd be more beneficial. When everything becomes when the behavior and the rules becomes more and more structured, it limits things. It limits a lot of things. And maybe on the surface, it sounds like not a big deal, the rules that I mentioned. But I think in the long term, again, it's a discrete controlling of behavior.
But you also have to have some rules when it's in such a contained settings. Otherwise, you just turn into shit very quickly. Like people start like playing soccer on the grass. Well, that's it. The grass is going to be ruined. Or like you bring your dog and they're going to pee at every corner. Then that's it. Everything's going to be yellow and smell like piss,
Yeah. I think
you have to, depending on the park that you're designing, there is rules that come with.
But see, this is the thing. San Francisco has a lot of cool parks, but this one's uniquely positioned because it's downtown. So you could get a lot of different people and a lot of working people. It could be quite good. And I think it should just welcome variety of behavior and activities and stuff like this, as opposed to doing the opposite. And even the park design itself, to go back to what your kind of problems with the loopiness of it, which I agree with, kind of emphasizes that. So super prescriptive path. This thing is fairly wide. It's the width of a building. It's like half a block, which listeners you'll see. So there's enough girth to have gathering spaces, and they do have, like you said, 2 big gathering spaces that span the entire width, and it's a nice little plaza, big enough for a lot of people, not too big to where you start to feel confused about the space, you know. So there's good width, but they only have 2 spots where you can really gather. One is at one end where there's the amphitheater, you know, Salesforce amphitheater, whatever bullshit it's called, where they had the yoga people. Really a uninspiring amphitheater, I have to say, in terms of design. Really, actually, I don't know why it's so terrible. It looked like something from a public elementary school. I didn't have enough funding to do anything else. And then in the middle, next to Starbucks, and which is inside the Salesforce Tower, I believe. But other than that, your way of getting around is only the loop that you described. It's a pretty narrow path. Now, is it cool to walk along all these different prehistoric and whatever era plants?
It feels like a museum.
Yes, but if you have that much real estate and it's fat, you kind of expect a little more, you know, zigzag, meandering, some more variation in pockets of spaces. A lot of it is basically linear circulation. You're just walking down this path, tiny benches on one side, and then a whole bunch of green on your right, if you're going counterclockwise. And on your right, there's all this green with the little signs that tell you what's going on, and which is cool, but also kind of a problem, because one of the unique things about having this in the center of the city is to feel like you're in the city from a different perspective, like the High Line. You could have done that here, but you've cut off any kind of really strong relationship with the city because you have all these plants.
You have that green border all around the edges, so you can never really be at the edge and like look down the street or get up close to a building, which, you know, for safety reasons and people jumping or doing whatever crap, like I can understand, but it's frustrating.
Yeah.
In the same time, I have to say that I kind of like that it almost felt like an oasis because of that. You know, you felt so cut off of the rest of the city that it was nice for a moment, but
for a moment. So this is what I don't get, because I think the park is big enough to house different kinds of moments. So why not have that happen for half of it or a third of it, and then have other things happen? Like, I was really surprised there weren't more, you know, more variation in sizes of spaces for different size of gatherings. There's a few, but there's like 4 different ones, right? Total. The 2 big ones, and then the other 2 medium-sized ones at the other end of the park, which are also very underwhelming. So, and it's strange. It's very confusing. So the entire experience feels like walk, big space. Okay, walk some more. Anything else going on? Nope, still more plants. Am I really into plants? Yay. If I'm not so much into plants, then it's just more plants. Walk around, make a turn, and that's it. And I don't know. I mean, for $2.2 billion in this massive thing in the heart of one of the most important cities in the country, if not the world, like, maybe do something a little more exciting.
Oh, and they had also a playground. So I guess they checked out all the boxes, right? They have some bench, they have a yoga, they have a Starbucks, they have a playground.
But you know, the problem is also that all these things are super disconnected because, and again, maybe there were you know, programmatic or structural constraints that forced them to this kind of donut loop party or way of laying out things. Maybe there was that, but we don't know. But there, you always feel disconnected. So like even the playground space, you feel like you're kind of like you're like an alley. You're like between a building and a path, and you shouldn't really be there, but you happen to be there. Like, how do I describe it? Like, when you have a straight shot path that's really narrow and really focused and really, really strong and defined, that is the thing, that is the space, this is the defined path. And then you have a very narrow space next to it where you're supposed to gather. It can feel very uncomfortable because you don't feel like you're relaxed because you're next to this very intimidating and very long hallway, essentially. So when you're off of that hallway, you don't feel like you're meant to be there. It feels like you're secondary to the path, and that you're kind of in some kind of like, you know, pocket or corner or whatever sliver of space in a park where like dogs would shit, right? Because it's a temporary space to be in. And that's what
Well, it's an afterthought, like, oh shit,
Yes.
we forgot the playground. Let's just put it there, put
Yeah.
a couple of jumping things, and that's good.
Yeah, and I think it would have been more important to have some of these other spaces feel interlinked with others, so you could see across to the other side. You know, it's not necessary for us to be always in a hallway condition when we have this much space and we have all these towers around. It's like we could, you know, do more different things. And I also agree, let's assume that the grass is going to be closed and it's meant to be closed off for sitting and standing and walking on permanently. It's not a temporary thing. Let's assume that it's permanent. What the fuck?
Then just put AstroTurf.
That's ridiculous. You know, it's almost a tease.
And it looked really lush and fluffy.
I know,
so
you're
was
walking
like,
around
ooh.
this thing, you're like, wow, so nice. Can't walk on it. Okay, keep walking forward. Another 30 feet, more plants to the right. Wow, another nice opening. Looks like a meadow. There's trees, there's grass, there's like foliage. Can't walk it. Okay, I guess I'll keep going. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, and then you go around the loop again. All right, cool. Groundhog
I'm
Day.
telling you, it's the park for business meetings. You don't lay down on the grass. You don't do picnic during lunch. Like, you don't do any of that.
How many deals can you do in one loop today,
Yeah.
Todd? And I think it's interesting with this park and other parks and other parks where they include art installations, and the city or the state, probably the city, allocates money to give toward art pieces and artists to be included in the park. So like the bus triggered fountain that you're describing is an art installation, piece, by an artist. And there's actually half a dozen other ones that exist within the park terminal, whatever.
Well, we'll have to look it up. I didn't see any others.
That's the interesting thing. Well, first I have a problem with the fountain thing, which you talk about, but that's an interesting thing, right? That you have these public art pieces, and as a tourist who has not done research on this place, you have no idea that is an art installation unless you read the plaque. And not in that, you might not even know that these fountains are triggered by a bus unless you read the plaque.
Oh, I didn't read it. I heard someone saying it when we were walking.
Oh, really?
But I would have no idea. Yeah, I don't read stuff in parks. I'm not there for reading.
But see, that's the interesting thing. So it's like, maybe this is a whole other discussion, but I think as designers and as critics, you know, you judge something based on your knowledge of it, right? So once you know that the fountain was done by an artist, right? Oh, that's cooler. The fountain is also triggered by buses that go underneath. So there's some kind of relationship between what's below and above, and the mechanical bus in the park and whatever. That's interesting. But if you don't know that stuff, just fucking fountain. It's just a fountain.
And it was taking half of the width of the pathway. And there was this stupid curb in the middle. And so I was thinking, well, you know, maybe during the summertime, they make it as like little pool, you know, like a super shallow pool for like people to like, because it gets really hot in San Francisco, to like walk barefoot in the water, like the Highline does. I figured it's something similar. And then you walk around and suddenly there is like water shooting out, and I was like, oh shit, like, you know, at least you could put some light blinking to warn me that the water's coming.
The idea behind it is cool. You know, I tend to favor things that are responsive to other stuff. But the trick with it, as I said before, it's like, well, does it have any significance if you're not educating people and they don't know about it? Okay. If you say that people is a way to educate people about, you know, interaction with the bus system and how often the buses are coming, you're basically relying on a plaque or Wikipedia for them to understand this. Maybe the installation has to educate in some way more clearly then. So that's first part of the issue I have with it. The other is the execution. The problems you described, I totally agree with. And also they have this frosted glass backing. So again, you have this pathway you're walking on, and throughout 90% of the journey, you have a disgusting fat railing you described, and then greenery. You get to this section where there's the water fountain, which is pretty long. So now it's the path, the water feature, tall frosted glass, which is like 4 feet tall. It's tall.
It's tall.
And then green behind that, which means then for that entire length, and it is a significant length, you're completely cut off from the city. So when you start on the path, you're cut off from the city because of the greenery. Now you get to this point, you're even more cut off. You might as well not even be above grade. You're completely placeless. That is a terrible installation. You don't understand the advantages of the site, artist, person, whoever you were, that you're not understanding it.
Was the frosted panels part of the art installation?
I don't know. I mean, whoever decided to put that in, like, that's a terrible idea.
I didn't understand it. I was like, is water coming out of it? Like, are they projecting stuff on it? What is this for?
I mean, it was totally placeless. It did not take advantage of the incredibly rare opportunities of the location.
Like, was it supposed to be engraved with something?
I don't know. And then the other art installation, which I read about, but I don't remember seeing. So again, it's like, I don't know. There's definitely a discussion to be had about the passive nature of architecture, public art, and parks, and their efficacy and their meaning and how they all relate. Because again, you kind of have to wonder. Most of the meaning of something more conceptual, like this fountain thing, is it completely lost if we don't know that it's triggered by buses?
Because you could just wait upstairs for your bus to come, and when you see the water shooting up, you gotta run down. Not sure. Yeah,
I'm trying to think if I had any other thoughts about the park. No, not really. It all felt fairly typical, I would say. I mean, again, unless you like plants a lot, then you're going to be blown away.
I really love the planting there. If anyone likes plants, I would say go check it out, because there is some very, very cool stuff, and it's very nicely laid out. But if you're looking to picnic there or going for a first date, no, wrong place.
I don't know why these above grade infrastructures, let's call them, public spaces, don't connect to more buildings. You know what I mean?
I think it's security aspects, logistics.
But still, I mean,
who's responsible for maintaining what? I don't know.
Yeah. It's a weird area. I mean, anytime you have an elevated whatever thing in the middle of a city, it's like, you feel like you're in an alley in Batman, or you're in Gotham City all of a sudden, because the underground.
I like the feeling though.
It's cool, but it is inevitably always dirty. There's like extra trash around. It feels like, it feels like all the smog gathers underneath the building.
I like the feeling to being up, but there is always, to me, the issue of what's happening on the ground floor.
Yeah, it's a tough one to solve.
Yeah.
It's a really tough one to solve. Or maybe not. Maybe it's not tough. Maybe what makes it tough is just the fact that there's so many different people you have to, deal with in a project like this. But anyway, so the two cracked beams have been fixed. And if you're listening to this and you live in San Francisco and you love that park and you disagree with us, then call us at 213-222-6950. Or if you have any other anecdotes or questions, comments, or you just want to say hi. Literally, just want to call and say, hi, my name is Kevin. I like
cheese. Because we know Kevin that likes cheese.
Then call us.
Or you want to practice your French, see if I can understand what you're saying. Feel free.
What else do we have coming up? So, again, we have the two more episodes about how to interview and how to pass the architects registration exams in the United States that have not yet been recording, and we need questions from you guys. Or advice. These are episodes where we provide conversations, advice sometimes about how to do these things, how to ace an interview, how to pass the tests. And we need questions from you to help frame it. And we also need advice. So if you feel like you are a wise person and you're good at interviewing or passing the exams, then call 213-222-6950. Leave a voicemail. It goes straight to voicemail, so there's no concern about
interacting with us.
Yeah, I'm not going to answer. And, maybe leave me some information about who you are. Give us your name or a fake name if you want.
So wait, we can text them back?
I don't know. I think people can text in. You can also text in, but that's kind of lame. It'd be more fun to have a voicemail so we can play it on the recording.
I like texting. So.
Okay. But no, leave a voicemail. It's better because then, we get to know you a little bit, and other listeners get to also feel like they're part of a community. And so we can get some of us, out of isolation when we have these questions and build a support group. Other than that, as usual, we have our requests to rate our show on iTunes. That's always super helpful. That's really one of the best ways to support the show, in addition to calling the hotline now.
Or giving us money.
Check out our website, of course. We're on all the social medias. And we appreciate you guys listening. And we're looking forward to the hotline moving forward and keeping this podcast going. Yeah? Yeah. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you again next week or sooner. Bye.
Bye-bye.